This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, whatever you're listening on. I'm Mike Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King. From the Walker Report, Bradley Walker. From Steelers Nation South, Rollo Coffin. We are joined tonight by a special guest. She has many hats that she can wear. She's an actor, a model, an acting coach. I saw that she's done stunt work, so she's got a little bit of everything here in her forte. She's appeared in TV and films that include The Cutting Edge, which we're going to be discussing later on tonight in our debate. For Love of the Game, one of my favorite movies of all time. Dad, if you're watching, she was on Blue Bloods, so I know that's your favorite show. SVU, Orange is the New Black, Spin City, Third Watch. It's just a plethora of things that she's guest starred on. She's won awards. She has her own acting studio and has created online courses. You can check all that out on her website. And I'm hoping I'm saying your name right because I've heard it 10 different ways on YouTube. Nahanni Johnstone.
There you go. Yes.
All right. .com. So check that out. So let's welcome to the podcast, Nahanni Johnstone. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for suggesting those movies. I really, really loved those movies.
Excellent, excellent. And if you can't tell, tonight's debate is going to be a film debate. It is the greatest Olympic film in the comedy genre. And then, as always, we'll have our Q&A afterwards for her about her career. Just a word to the wise: spoilers ahead. So let's jump into our first film, and let's see. Rollo, why don't you start us out tonight?
So the film that I got was Blades of Glory, which stars one of the funniest humans that I could think of in Hollywood, Will Ferrell. He had a cast of a lot of Saturday Night Live members that were on this movie as well. John Hader, Amy Poehler, Will Arnett, Jenna Fisher, Craig T. Nelson, Romany Malco, and Andy Richter were part of this hilarious cast. Heather and Will Ferrell actually learned to skate for this movie from Michelle Kwan's coach, Sarah Kawahara. So that was a nice little nugget that I learned. This movie was made on a budget of $61 million and grossed $145.7 million. It debuted at 1 on its opening weekend. This is a movie that satirizes the best and worst part of the figure skating world. It centers on two male figure skaters with completely different styles, and they had a heated rivalry. They share gold at the Olympics, and that rival comes to a head when they get into a fight and set the world mascot on fire. They are eventually stripped of their gold medals and banned from skating for life. They wind up finding a loophole in the Olympics. If they become a pair, they can be get back in the Olympics as a same-sex couple. They wind up setting their differences aside so they can get the gold, and just the moments that ensue to get to that point, to get to the Olympics, is hilarious. You got to check it out if you haven't seen it. It's one of the funniest sports movies that I've seen, starring one of my favorite male actors, Will Ferrell.
So Nahanni, we come to you. Out of the four films tonight, this is probably the most, let's say, slapstick comedy one. A lot of people, Will Ferrell can be an acquired taste for, but what are your thoughts on him as just a comedic actor, but the movie in general?
Well, I love Will Ferrell, and now as I've gotten older, my tastes have changed, and I'm less into the kind of vulgar stuff that I used to. I used to love all of that stuff. And Will Ferrell has been always one of my favorites. And the supporting cast, Will Arnett and Amy Poehler, I mean, you can't get better than that. It's the comedy elite. And I don't know if you know, Will Arnett's Canadian. I knew him before he was famous. And he was always hilarious. He's just hilarious. He's playing himself because he's just a hilarious guy. So those actors, I mean, I don't think you could make a bad movie with those actors. And the thing that takes it to the next level is the stunt work, because to have the juxtaposition of incredible skating with that kind of comedy, you're getting the best of the best. I mean, you've got the best skaters mixed with the best comic actors. So it's a recipe for success. You can't screw that up. So I loved that. I love the combination. We watch a lot of action films in my house because my husband is a stunt coordinator. And so he's always watching the action. So I've really developed a taste for big action movies and an appreciation for the work of the stunt performers. Actors have it so easy. We're so coddled. We're like the babies on the set that need to have their diaper changed, and the stunt people are like out there, risking their lives, doing the really hard work. Actors aren't going to like me for saying that, but there's some actors that do their own stunts, but the stunt performers will just blow your mind every time from what they do and the things they can pull off. So I liked the movie for that reason. It wasn't my favorite of the group, but it probably would have been before I saw the other ones.
Hey, Rollo, let me ask you real quick. What was the name of that skate move they did, like the Flying Lotus or something? What was the name?
I can't remember. He had cut the
Flying Lotus.
The Flying Lotus. Cut his previous partner's head off with the move.
that was hilarious when they showed that. Yeah, I about died on that one. All right, let's move into our second film here. You know what? Let's go to Brad. Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings. All right. So directed by John Turteltaub, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The budget was $17 million. It made $154.9 million. Basically, John Candy, again, one of the greatest comedy actors of all time. Planes, Trains, Automobiles with Steve Martin was a great film. But again, this movie was based on him being a former bobsled for the United States. He moves to Jamaica, furthest away from any snow or ice that you possibly can go, and ends up having to train 3 Jamaican sprinters and 1 bobsled driver to the bobsled to compete in the Olympics in Calgary, Alberta, where in one of the scenes when they first get to Calgary, you see them all go from warm weather to cold weather. They run and try to get all these warm clothes. And it's, a great movie. I think basically the movie comes down to them trying to gain the respect of the other bobsled teams that are more experienced than them. And at the end of the movie, they have a disaster, but they carry the bobsled across the finish line and finish instead of just giving up. They earn the respect of the rest of the bobsled teams that are there. But again, it was one of those movies kind of maybe make you cry at the end as you see them carrying that bobsled across the finish line and gaining the respect of all the other bobsled teams that were in Calgary competing for a gold medal.
Hey, honey, do you remember this happening? I
don't remember. I had to look it up and say, is this a true story? Is this? Yeah. And it seems there is some contention about how much was true and how much wasn't. That they're like, yeah, 1% was true, but it was based on a true story, right?
Right. Correct. And if anybody wants to learn more about the Jamaican bobsled team, go into our archives, check out the Olympic episode with John Neighbor. Brian represented the Jamaican bobsled team for what was it, Greatest Upset in Olympics, I believe.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Right. So check that out in the archives. But so what were your thoughts on the movie? John Candy, you can't go wrong with a John Candy comedy. He turned some John Hughes films just into huge hits. Not that John Hughes wasn't great himself, but what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I am from Canada originally. I'm born in Canada, so of course I'm going to be like, yay, John Candy. He was a beautiful guy and such a great talent. And I just love that it wasn't just comedy. There was there's some real vulnerability in him in this movie. And just, how he was trying so hard. And I think it's very similar to Eddie the Eagle, which I absolutely loved. And they actually talked about the Jamaican bobsled team in Eddie the Eagle.
That's right.
I thought that was it's a very similar, I guess that's why you put them together, because they're very similar.
It happened in the same Olympics.
There was the same Olympic. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know what you're doing. So I loved both stories. I loved the underdog story and just the idea that it's perseverance that makes it. It's you just need perseverance in a dream. It's not always the most talented person that wins. It's not always the obvious. It's the people that come from nowhere who just really, really want it, who just have a really strong why that they want it. But I got to say, I loved all of the cold Canadian jokes. Because I'm in the South right now and I forgot what it's like to be that cold, but when I go back there, it's like, I remember it is, yeah. Anyone coming from Jamaica to Canada is going to be in for a shock. You just can't be ready for that. It's so cold, and especially in the winter in Calgary. Ouch. But yeah, that's another real feel good movie for the whole family. And I love movies that you can watch with your family, because these days you just never know what you're going to get. So
Right.
it's great to watch a movie like that. That's funny, that's beautiful, that has, scenery, but it's comedy. It's just something for everyone. And I think it's good to have movies like that, to promote movies like that you can sit down with everybody to watch. I feel like those days have changed because there's so much violence in movies. Maybe we have to dig into the archives to find the movies that have so many wonderful human aspects and that leave you feeling uplifted at the end.
Absolutely.
That's why I like this one.
And one of two of our movies tonight based off a true story. Does that change your opinion on a film when you watch it? Like when you're going into it knowing that it's based off a true story at all?
I don't know if it changes my opinion, as I think everything comes from some truth. Whoever wrote a movie is pulling from some truth. But I think there's a different way that people treat it when it's a true story. There's a kind of a respect that most filmmakers would have, feeling like they really want to do this story justice, because there are real people that are probably still alive, that were behind it. And this, they really want to sort of rise to the occasion rather than just kind of making something that no one's going to, be able to disagree with, because
Right.
they just made it up. I think truth is stranger than fiction, because sometimes you didn't know that was a true story. You'd be like, this is ridiculous. But it's a true story. So,
well, like you said, 1% of it is. So.
Yeah. Well, I think you can't always do it exactly because it just doesn't work for the film. You have to make a film. It has to be coherent, and it has to be a story that you can tell in a short amount of time. So a lot of times the details are left out and moved over, but based on a true story is good enough.
Right. Well, let's move on to our next film, and that's one our guest has been in, The Cutting Edge.
All right, so The Cutting Edge came out in 1992, just under a $3 million budget, but it grossed over $25 million. This one was a fun romantic comedy featuring D.B. Sweeney and Maura Kelly. Kelly plays a figure skater who is described by her coach as the Big B. She's snobby, constantly belittles her skating partners, and is just a nightmare to work with. Sweeney plays a hockey player who endures a head injury, which causes him to be partially blind in one eye. The figure skating coach, a Russian fellow played by Roy Dotrice, decides that after Kelly has ultimately rejected every possible figure skater partner in the business, that he would bring D.B. Sweeney, who also has no other options, and has been rejected by every other NHL team. At first, it's hilariously a match made in hell. Kelly does everything in her power to make Sweeney look bad and give up. There's a funny scene where he repeatedly falls, and with each wipeout, she needles him simply by saying toe pick. There are other many funny moments in this. As the two try to outcompete each other, each during their training, and there's a growing romantic essence as each one lowers their guard temporarily in order to kind of see how the other responds. These two really battle it out until the end, disagreeing from everything from outfits to music to the format of the Olympic program itself. Ultimately, they come together before their most important skate, drop their guards, share their true feelings, and do something truly spectacular on the ice. I like this one because of the culture clash. Sweeney was just a working class guy from Minnesota, while Kelly was a high-class girl who had been sheltered all her life from the real world. Dotrice, their coach, the Russian guy, I thought he was an underrated character. His simple phrasing was actually profound, and it came off as world-wise, and his crazy experiment really worked. The film got mixed reviews. Some loved it, some hated it. One critic called it The Taming of the Shrew on Ice, which is not totally inaccurate, but kind of oversimplifies what I believe was a very enjoyable film.
I come to you, Nahanni, on this one. You were part of this film. D.B. Sweeney, I love him. He's been on this show before. So if you want to learn more about that movie, we do ask him in the Q&A section. Check it out in the archives, everybody. Something about this film we see a lot is it's the two opposite world characters. and I like how Brian was mentioning that. But just the play of you have this girl who doesn't really want to be there, and you have this guy who's just like going all out to do anything possible to be there and get to the Olympics. So, tell us about this film. I remember you saying you had a story about it as well.
Well, I was not on the film for very long. I think that was one of the first films I did too. It was very early in my career, and it was great. I had to be a German something. I can't even remember what I was now, like a German. Isn't that terrible that I don't remember? It was a long time ago, but I just remember I had this big German and kicked DB Sweeney jumps out of the bed in the morning, rushing late to the Olympics. He's overslept because we had a night together. But so it was a very short part for me. But what I loved about being on this film was that the director, Paul Michael Glaser, who was half of Starsky and Hutch. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that show. But he was a lovely man, and he included me on the table reads, which doesn't always happen, and less and less. People don't really have time to rehearse, and table reads almost seem to be a luxury these days. But he included me, even though I only had a small part in the whole, the cast get together for the table read. And so I wasn't working with Moira, but I met her, and I have to say, not only is she a brilliant actress, and I watched what she was doing at the table read, and she is a lovely girl, just the sweetest, kindest, gentlest person, nothing like her character. And I watched her work one scene a couple of different times, and just to watch her access to herself and her emotion was quite beautiful for me as a new actor to see her work in person. She's incredibly, incredibly talented. And Moira actually had just booked A League of Their Own, the baseball movie with Madonna and Laura, and she was supposed to be the pitcher. So, every chance she got, she was out there. I was only around her for a day, and I remember this. She was out there pitching, just practicing, because she was going to start shooting that right after the Cutting Edge. And, she was fairly early in her career, and it would have really made a huge, difference for her. But then a week into filming Cutting Edge, she broke her ankle. And she had been training as a skater and training. I mean, this girl was working hard. She had trained, to do a lot of her own skating in the movie. And then she was also training to be a pitcher. So she was really working hard. And I have a lot of respect for that, because that's, it's a lot to take on two things at once like that. And so I think it broke her heart a little bit when she got hurt and she couldn't do her own skating. They had to sort of pull her around on a little, I don't know, there's some kind of contraption where they should just sit on it, and they pulled her. And I'm sure that made her crazy, because I could tell she was really wanting to do her own stuff. So I love the film. I think it's a beautiful film. Again, it's another film you can see with the whole family. And at the beginning, you're like, okay, I get it. They're setting up like these guys hate each other. We know where it's going. Right. But even know where it's going, it's like, it's so obvious, but it's still such a fun journey to watch it happen. You're just rooting for them all the way. And DB Sweeney, also great actor. Both of them, they're the kind of actors that they never maybe got to that A-list level, but they're definitely capable. Their work is up there. Their work is up there with any A-list actor. So, I highly recommend this film. Also, there's a great actress in the first scene that you're just going to want to remember.
That's right.
German accent.
It kind of makes sense that you said she was going to be the pitcher in A League of Their Own. Petty
got that job. Who's also is a lovely person as well. I'm glad she got the job, but it was,
Well, and it makes even more sense because we had Megan Cavanaugh and she played Marla Hoosh. She said that it wasn't Gina Davis to begin with; it was Deborah Winger. So I could see Moira Kelly being Deborah Winger's sister. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, interesting. Well, it's a good film. Check it out, everybody. The Cutting Edge. I enjoy it. I own it on DVD. Yes, there are still DVDs out there, people. But let's move on to our final film. And just a quick note on all four films tonight. all of them ended up being Winter Olympics. So, hey, Summer Olympics, get your act together and make some comedy films, okay? Let's get on the ball here. All right, so I got 2016's Eddie the Eagle, and I had not seen this movie before I started doing my research, and what a treat this film is. Budget of 23 million, brought in 46.2 million, so not like a huge hit, but starring Taron Egerton. If you're not familiar with him, he played Elton John in the biography movie. Hugh Jackman and Christopher Walken has a small part in it. Nominated for 4 awards, including Choice Movie Actor for Taron Egerton at the Teen Choice Awards. It's got 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a really good score for Rotten Tomatoes. And that's the highest tonight by a lot. So let me throw that argument out there. Cinema Score audience gave it an A. The audiences are always a little easier on their grades than the critics, it seems like. But Taron Egerton, he plays Michael Edwards. It's a true story of a British skier. He ended up getting nicknamed Eddie the Eagle, who in 1988, he became Britain's first ski jumper since 1928. Hugh Jackman plays his drunk mentor. So we got another drunk coach, just like Cool Runnings there. Bronson Perry, and then Christopher Walken is legendary U.S. coach Warren Sharp. So Eddie is portrayed as, I guess we could say, a geek. I mean, that seems kind of right. But his dream is to be an Olympian, and just everybody's against him. His dad, like, you really hate his dad at the beginning of this film, because he comes to the point where he says to his dad, "Well, what was your dream, Dad?" And he's like, "To be a plasterer." So, and that's what he did for a living. That just really bummed you down. But the British Olympic Committee was against him because of his appearance and his awkwardness. So he doesn't make the Olympics as a skier. So he finds this loophole and becomes a ski jumper, learns to ski jump. And since they have no jumpers for Britain, he's obviously going to make the team. This leads him to the Olympics, where even though he is the worst, he wins the world's hearts over. And there's a lot more to the story than that. I don't want to give it away. Check it out in our archives. But just some funny parts. Bronson Perry, who played Hugh Jackman, doing his jump drunk. I thought that was pretty funny. All this training scenes of Eddie the Eagle are pretty funny, especially the beginning one where he's a kid and he's just falling in all kind of crazy ways. And then there's a good scene where Bronson's teaching Eddie how to pretend to have an orgasm when he's doing a ski jump. I thought that was really funny. So whether it's the funniest tonight, I think that could definitely be debated. But I'll leave that up to the vote here. But I do think overall it's the best film we're talking about tonight. So now, honey, your thoughts on this one? Just two huge actors in Hugh Jackman and Taron there. So what were your thoughts on the film?
Well, I'm so grateful that you told me to watch it, because I'd never heard of it. And I watched it and I just loved it. I mean, I loved it. It was my favorite. I tend to favor British films. I don't know, every film I've ever just fallen in love with has usually been British. I don't know what it is about them. They just focus so much on the craft. A lot of the stuff that happens in Hollywood, the fame stuff, doesn't really happen the same way in England. So they tend to be more craft oriented. And the craft in this movie blew me away. Just everything. The director was so good. This guy, I'd never even heard of him. And I have seen the Elton John movie. Dexter Fletcher, who directed the Elton John movie as well with Taron Egerton. And both of those names I did not know. And I was horrified that I haven't heard of these people, because they're so talented. I thought the physical work that Taron was doing, the physicalization, if you see pictures of this guy, of the original Eddie, he has just a strength,
jaw. Yeah.
Right? And he nailed it. He really, and that's hard to keep up for however long it took to, you have to kind of he really kept it up, and he basically transformed his face by the way he was holding it, the way he was holding his muscles and his jaw. And he just looked like a different guy. Hugh Jackman was wonderful. I thought they didn't really go into his story very much. Like, it didn't really play the sort of Like, I think the John Candy thing was went a little more into it. Hugh Jackman kept it fairly light, and we kept it focused on Taron, but he was a wonderful support to Taron's work. I loved this movie. I loved the story of perseverance, of this guy's indomitable spirit, that no matter what happened, it's a great lesson for anybody, because, we tend to be so like, oh, people, I'm getting offended easily, and people get their feelings hurt and then they quit. And it's like, you can't. You have to look at this guy, like, no matter what happened, his dad, like, basically verbally punches him in the face on a daily basis, and he just keeps going. Nothing phases him. And, no matter what happens. And that was so inspiring to me. I want to rewatch this film with my kids and just say, this is what you need. This is the spirit you need to have to succeed in the world. It's not about the most talented. It's not about the most connected. It's not about all of those outside things. It's about who's got the biggest heart, whose heart is just going to not quit on them, and then I thought this was a beautiful movie for that. Just this guy's heart was so great. It didn't matter how awkward he was or how bad he was. His heart took him all the way to the top. And it was beautiful that, no, he didn't win, but the people fell in love with him. He won the hearts of people.
Yeah.
So,
I
totally
like your
favorite movie, even though I was in the cutting edge. Those other movies aren't fantastic. They're all worth watching. All of them worth watching. Spend the 2 hours. You won't regret it. Like sometimes when you spend 2 hours and you're like, I'll never get those 2 hours back. Why did I do that? These are 2 hours. Any of these movies that you will not regret, and you will not want your time back.
I was not familiar with Taron either, like yourself, and I saw that he was in the Kingsman movies, which are kind of like a younger James Bond type movies. And then the only thing I knew him from, you said you have children, is he is the voice of the gorilla in the Sing movies with Matthew McConaughey and Reese Witherspoon. So he is an amazing voice. He's really good. So. Well, let's move into our vote here tonight, guys. Cannot vote for your own. Brian, you're in my corner. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Blaze of Glory.
Blaze of Glory, short and sweet. All right.
Right, yeah.
Paulo.
Let me remind all of you that Cosmo called Blades of Glory the greatest skating movie of all time. So let me put that out there. I'm going to put that in the universe, okay? But since I can't vote for my own, I'm going to go with Eddie the Eagle. I did enjoy that time watching that movie. Like Nahanni said, I felt good. It felt good after the movie. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Brad.
It's hard, but I got to go with Eddie the Eagle as well.
Okay. And so for me, I can't vote Eddie the Eagle. Otherwise, well, I probably wouldn't, because I'm going to vote tonight for what's the funniest, not what was the best movie. And for me, that came down to Cool Runnings and Blades of Glory. But as far as being the funniest, I do have to go with Blades of Glory. I think it's a little funnier than Cool Runnings. As much as I love John Candy and Dougie Doug, it's a little bit funnier. So, Nahanni, you can break our tie. You can vote for something else. I think I know where you're going, but what's your vote?
I don't know if I'm going to break your tie, because I would give Blades of Glory the funniest movie award, but the best movie, for sure, Eddie the Eagle. I was happy I watched that movie.
So that does break our tie, because that's 3 for Eddie the Eagle. So a win for myself here tonight. All right, excellent. Let's move into our Q&A. Switch out my notes here a little bit. All right, so you've done TV, theater, and film. Is there one that you prefer more? Like, what's your favorite part of each?
I don't think I have a preference so much. I sort of phased out of theater when I had children, because I didn't want to be away at night. I wanted to be able to put my kids to bed and work in sort of concentrated bursts. But I think what makes it great is the people you work with. So much of film work is it's community. It's a collaboration. So it's not so much which genre I like. It's more like the group of people that you happen to be with. And even if you're with a group of people that's, I don't know, if there's difficult personalities, sometimes that makes it fun, because everybody kind of has to bond together to deal with a difficult personality. So I haven't had any really bad experiences. There's been good from every single thing that I've done, every show that I've been on, even the shows where I'm like, please don't watch that. I still had great experiences doing that. So yeah, I can't really answer that. I don't have a preference. I mean, if you could say, what would you want to do? Yeah, I would probably pick film, because that's the most prestigious and, the most financially rewarding. And you've got it hits all the, all the markers, but, checks all the boxes. But I'm happy to do anything that has to do with this industry. Like, I even love coaching, because I love to analyze scripts, and I love working with other actors. It's the camaraderie on sets and in theaters is just something so beautiful. It's like a family. It becomes like a family, sometimes a dysfunctional family, but it's kind of a family vibe. And since I was an only child, I really, really like the family. I like the family aspect. And
We'll
is that a long way of really not answering your question?
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. We'll go Brian Bradrollo.
All right, Nahanni. I was just wondering, do you have an opinion on the Screen Actors Guild strike? I mean, it seems like they're looking for higher pay, and they're not really feeling the streaming services and that sort of thing. So, do you have an opinion on that?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I've seen my income drop dramatically over the years, and you would think that the more experience you have, the more that it would go up. But it's the streaming services. I gotta say, they were warned and they didn't listen, and they gave it away, and that was not smart. So they're absolutely right to try to get something back from that, because actors sometimes have a short life, and those films end up making the producers so much money, and actors aren't asking for like a huge chunk of it. And it's really not the A-listers that have a problem. It's the regular working class, just like everything else, right? It's the working class people that are the working actors, like that we don't. It used to be a lot easier just to qualify for healthcare. It's very hard to qualify for healthcare now. And so it's just to make it a doable, livable career that people are really fighting for. And the AI thing is a huge, I mean, really, I just tell everybody, please don't use AI if you can help it, because it's going to take out so many of us. So many of us are going to lose our jobs to a computer. Now, personally, I believe that you can't replicate the human spirit. If that's something that just is in your eyes, it's your energy. And I don't think a computer can replicate that. I honestly don't think it will succeed. But I don't know if that's just my opinion, but I do think that we have to put boundaries around that. I don't know that I have a lot of faith in billionaires and unions. My faith is with God, and my faith is with that God, that spirit of God that moves through human beings. And if that means that the industry is going to completely change and we're going to go more independent, and maybe people aren't going to make $20 million a picture, maybe I've never made that anyway. So that's not going to be a big change for me. I've always just been a working class, actor. So if we go into that more, that's kind of where my focus is going, is like, how can I keep creating? I don't really want to wait for permission from some rich billionaire in Hollywood to live my life, And so, yeah, I just kind of think, okay, well, that's happening, so I'm just going to keep working. And that's, we see the models of, there's new paradigms emerging, like The Chosen. That's my favorite, and Sound of Freedom. Angel Studios, they're just creating a whole new paradigm. And it's one that I personally agree with very much. It's for the people, by the people, That's kind of where I stand.
Nice.
Go ahead, Brad.
As an actress, I gotta ask, do you have a top 3 or top 5 all-time favorite movies?
Oh, that's a tough question, because there's so many different categories of favorites. There's the favorites I grew up with, like Fiddler on the Roof and The Sound of Music. And there's the favorites from when I was a teenager, like The Warriors. Remember that one? Warriors. I saw that movie, like, I don't know how many times I saw that movie. There's my favorite industry movies, Ben Stiller's Zoolander and Tropic Thunder. Definitely been on high rotation in my house. But then there's the movies that I really, sometimes I'll love a movie and then I'll find out something about the people who made it. And I think that's happening a lot these days where I'm like, oh, I don't think I want to watch that person's movies anymore. So my favorites are changing the more I find out about things like that. You know, then I'll maybe look at something like that Mel Gibson movie where he was the Scottish guy. What's the name of with the blue face?
Braveheart.
Braveheart. You know, suddenly something like that becomes my new favorite. So I don't have a movie that I'm sort of stuck on, you know, as being my favorite. I have all the ones I've mentioned. I've watched. Maybe The Sound of Music is one of those. Like, I've watched it probably 50 times, and I'll probably watch it another 50. But my favorites change as the world changes. You know, I have different reasons to like movies, and that's what's so beautiful. There's so many to choose from. You know, British films tend to be my favorites. There's a movie called Impromptu that I watched like over and over when I rented back in the days of, you know, the chunky tapes. I rented that tape and I watched it 3 times in a row. Just watched it and then watched it again and then watched it again. So yeah, I'm sure I'm leaving a lot of movies out, but I do love those British films from that era, and the British directors. I tend to favor those guys. Like, so thank you for introducing me to a new one, because now I'm going to go watch everything that Dexter, is that his name again? Dexter Fletcher. I'm going to go watch everything that Dexter Fletcher has done. With Nail and I, that was another favorite for me for a while. Being a starving, struggling actor in New York, all my New Yorker friends, Will Arnett included, were like obsessed with Nail and I, and we all watched it over and over and memorized all the lines and just like repeated them to each other because we were living that, you know? Yeah. If you're an actor, you were like, yes, that one. Maybe an older actor.
Rala, go ahead.
So many.
Honey, you were in a film called Yellow Fever, where you won an award. Tell us how you got involved in that project, and what does that movie mean to you? Because it deals with a lot of self-image and stuff like that.
Well, that was a funny one. There's a story there. I was having a rough week of just auditioning back in the days when we were auditioning in person. So driving to auditioning and, you know, big things like, you know, 10, 15 pages. And when you have to learn that every day for another role, you know, it's a lot. You can be exhausting, and everyone who's ever, you know, lived in LA knows what that's like. And there's times when I had 8 to 10 auditions a day. And yeah, anyway, I was having one of those weeks where I was exhausted, and I had to put a little prayer out there. I said, dear God, can you just give me a movie? Just hand me, just please. I just need an offer. I don't want to audition. I want a straight offer, and I would like it now. So I got this offer that day, or maybe that day or the next day. My agent from New York called and said, hey, I have an offer for you. And I thought, well, that's kind of crazy. So I get the offer, and it's like 2 lines in a horror film on Long Island. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not the offer. Okay, wait, God. Okay, let's go back. Okay, I want an independent film. I want leading or supporting leading role. I want lots of scenes, lots of stuff to do. I'd like to be a mom because I am a mom, and that's what interests me. I want to play a mom. I would like it to be in New York City, not on the island. And I think I had a few other. And I'm telling you, within 2 days, my agent called, and the amount of times I've gotten a straight offer, I could probably count on my hands, right? Like, it doesn't happen to me every day. I get a call. Oh, we have another offer for you. And it was Yellow Fever. And I was starting shooting like the next day. And so I loved that script. It was exactly what I wanted to do. And the actors in it were very, very good. It was a real shoestring budget. And the filmmakers were brand new. They hadn't never done a film before. So the fact that it got put together as well as it did was kind of a miracle. They had an amazing editor that I think was one of their professors or something that really pulled, because, you know, when you have no money, you just got to take what you can get, you know, and you've got like 5 or 6 people in a scene and the clock is ticking, you know, people don't realize like how that's time is money. And like, you got a whole, so these people just didn't have it. So sometimes we were just going on like one take, from each angle. Like we'd get one thing and that was it. So I was really curious to see what they were going to wind up with. And then it did get taken to festivals. And I wish they had done things a little differently, because I think that film could have gotten a release. I think it could have gone a lot further than it did. But that's a very common story. I mean, we did go to London. You're sitting in front of my picture because we went to London. Oh, that was another thing in my prayer. I was like, oh, and I want to go to festivals and I want to win an award. And I'm not kidding you. It was really like I just put this out there and it just came back to me like the next day. So it's one of the things I teach my actors that I work with. And like, it's not about struggling. It's about having a vision, trusting in God, and just really like living out your faith in your craft, and asking God to just come alongside you and just create, something beautiful. I don't recommend creating something not beautiful, but, so we did go to London. And my husband and I went for a week. We had the best time. And I did win the award, which was amazing. And, for actors, like, yeah, nobody saw it. It was a little festival and it was, it wasn't like a big deal. There was no, paparazzi, but I didn't care. I was just having a great time. And I know the work I did was solid, and, I was grateful to be a part of it. So that's the story on that film. There's some other stories, but I don't think I should probably tell you when we're being recorded, because they're kind of like, not shareable publicly.
So I'll finish us out tonight since I got the win here. I'll make it a two-parter. So Kurt Dempster, founder of the Ensemble Studio Theater in New York. He was a mentor of yours, I had read. This guy, he's produced over 6,000 plays and is responsible for launching careers like too many to count. How did he help your career, and what did you learn from him? And then roll that into what you did learn from him. How do you use that in your coaching now? And tell us about your studios and how people can order your classes and stuff.
I got a little bit clamped bringing up Kurt because he, he's no longer with us, right. And it ended badly for him. But I got to talk about the work he did. He was responsible for this theater called Ensemble Studio Theater that was all about being an incubator for talent. So you could find anybody, you'd go to this little 99-seat hole-in-the-wall theater and Hell's Kitchen and talk about, like, there's no fame, there's no money. It's not about that. It was just about the work. And so I joined this as an intern at this little company, and we would meet once a week and we would write. And then we would, work through what we were writing. We do these kind of like what I thought were really weird theater exercises, because I was not a theater so much person, but we do all these kind of theater exercises and getting into your imagination. And then we'd write. And then every few months we'd put on a night of plays, of just like little one-act plays. And it was the most wonderful creative time. Kurt really helped me trust myself as a writer. Like he taught me how to just unlock that part of me. And I've gone on to teach that with some of my students. And right now I'm getting ready to sort of start that again of like, let's forget about the SAG strike. I mean, yes, that's important, but let's create our own work. Let's get that creative thing going, because that is what generates kind of like a magnetism. So when I was doing that, I was doing this, this work with Kurt in EST, and I had a play I'd written and I directed it, and it was going up, my first time having a play that I'd created in New York City. And my manager sent me this audition. It was for Love of the Game. And I'm like, well, but this shoots like the same day as my play. And she's like, it's Kevin Costner, just go. So I'm like, oh, whatever. Okay. So I go to the audition and forget about it. I've just did it and forgot about it. And then of course I get the call that I booked it. And I was like, but wait, I worked really hard on this play, and this is like a nothing part. It's like a 1-page scene. Like, who's going to care? Like, and she just lost it on me. She's like, it's Kevin Costner and you're doing it. All right. I'm doing it. And I'm thinking, they're probably just going to like, it's probably going to be like a 2-hour shoot and I'm going to throw away my whole night for this nothing job. It's very respectful, but I am a Kevin Costner fan. Dances with Wolves, one of the movies I didn't mention, is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I thought, well, at least I'll get to tell him what that movie meant to me. So I get to the shoot. Sam Raimi was directing. It was Kelly Preston was playing the lead. I was very jealous, but whatever. So I did the scene with Kevin. And so as soon as I see Kevin, I'm like, listen, I didn't know how much time I was going to get to have, because you don't know. Like, sometimes the stars are very insulated from the rest of the cast and they don't want to connect and they don't want to talk to you. They're busy being stars, and that's fine. So I didn't know. So I just thought, well, at least I'm going to tell him that Dances with Wolves is one of my favorite movies of all time and how much it meant to me. So I did tell him that, and he listened, and I got to tell him about my mom and our experiences with the, Indigenous people in Canada. Anyway, we had a great chat, and then it turned out that 1-page scene was all we were shooting that night. It was like a 10-hour, 8-hour, whatever it was, shoot in the Waldorf Astoria. And then they blocked off the everything. And we were in the Waldorf shooting this scene. And that was it. Just me and Kevin shooting the scene all night. So we got to chatting. And I told him at one point, yeah, I'm supposed to be on stage right now in my play. So I'm missing that for you and your movie. And I had to replace myself, we got into this whole conversation about creating your own work. And Kevin told me his experiences about when he was creating Dances with Wolves and how he was broke and they were sitting around in some apartment on, somebody's bed, like writing and creating this whole, this movie that went on to win Oscars, multiple Oscars. I think he won for Best Movie and Best Director for that. And he should have won an actor award as well. I mean, I thought Graham Greene was spectacular in that movie. And Maury Chaykin was so great in that movie. So many great performances. But going back to what Kurt taught me, it was like, because I went in there as a creator, as an artist, as a writer and a director, even though I'm not famous and I wasn't doing anything big, and he's an A-lister, we connected like on as equals, because we weren't, the fame didn't matter. It's just in the moment, that doesn't matter. You can't quantify that. It's just, people that are really hung up on their fame are really hard to connect with. And the people that are more interested in the work are a lot more fun to connect with. They'll talk to anybody. They're not snobby about it. So that was, one of the most important things I learned from Kurt was that it's all about the work, and it doesn't matter who's famous and who's not, because you can only be one thing in the moment, and that's you doing the work. Doesn't matter what's in the bank or who wants to talk to you. It's just that. So, and when you're doing that, then you can really connect. When you're coming from that place, you can connect with anybody, any other artist that way. That's your common ground. And that's where all the fun and all the magic happens. So that attitude is what helps me when I'm working with a big star. Just really keep it, real. Does that make sense? Keeping it real.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kevin's a really nice guy too, by the way, in case anybody's wondering, because people always go, how were they? Were they nice? No, he's one of the good ones for sure.
And your classes are available on your website, correct?
Yes. Or you can just email me, nahanni.studio@gmail.com, because I have different things. I have some live classes depending on where I am, where I'm working. I have an online course for people that just want to do their own thing. And I teach privately, sometimes just, I just do privates on Zoom in tandem with the online course. So I basically put everything I've learned and that actors need, like the things that I wish I had when I was starting, onto an online course. And it's like, here's all the information. Watch the videos and then call me, and then we'll work together. And you work for actors who want to progress faster. It's just kind of like a turbocharge to your career, because I've made a greatest hits album, basically.
Oh, very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. It's really been fun to talk about these movies, and thank you for assigning them to me, because I had a great time watching them.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'd seen 3 out of the 4 before, and I went back and watched them, and it was just a good time again. So I want to remind everybody, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on whatever you're listening on. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.